This is Radio Free Pro Wrestling, your home for smart and stunning wrestling debates with lifelong wrestling fans Shawn and Ashlee. Let the debate begin.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's episode of Radio Free Professional Wrestling. Yes, your home, your global home for professional wrestling talk and debate. I am Shawn, and my tag team partner is Ashlee. Ashlee, how you doing this week?
I'm doing okay, Shawn. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. We're coming off a excellent AEW Double or Nothing pay-per-view. We're going to talk about how it played out on Dynamite. I may have a few minor issues with AEW Dynamite from last week. We'll get into it. But we're going to go right to the control center to get you caught up on the weekend professional wrestling news.
This is your Radio Free Pro Wrestling Control Center. All the wrestling news you need to know.
And my first story for you. Apple is reporting that Sonata is cleared by New Japan Pro Wrestling and he will be in action for All Together in Sapporo. Thank you, Lord. Maybe somebody besides Evil can challenge for the heavyweight title now.
Oh my God, hopefully. It's great to hear that he's healthy again. I feel like he was doing some really good work right before his injury. I think a lot of people had some kind of not so great opinions on Sonata maybe before his championship run, but I think he sort of proved himself as the champion and then turning it over to Naito. I think he had a good stretch there. So glad to hear he's healthy and back. And like you said, hopefully a new challenger because House of Torture, man.
You just have to have this to toy with Ashlee's emotions each and every week. A House of Torture match somewhere around the globe. So the second news story this week, Fightful is also reporting that Natalya's contract is expiring soon. Meltzer has reported that WWE has offered her a contract. It hasn't been signed yet. Also, Chad Gable's contract, reported by Fightful, ends this week, and he's in the middle of a intercontinental title feud with one Sami Zayn. Ashlee, I feel like these will come to terms. I feel like WWE is going to keep both these talents, but this is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It is kind of strange how WWE's let some of these bigger contracts kind of expire before getting it settled. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with Natty. I'm not sure if it's like a money-based thing, that's why she hasn't signed, or if it's just, she's looking at some other options or, like whatever it is that she may be doing. But usually we see these kind of like loose ends get tied up before the expiration. So hopefully they can come to agreement soon. That way Chad Gable can finish out the storyline.
Exactly, because we just saw last week on Monday Night Raw, Becky Lynch wrapping up her stay with WWE as her contract came to an end on May 31st. She is technically a free agent. Now, Fightful, Dave Meltzer, they're all reporting that she's going to take a long hiatus away from professional wrestling. We'll talk about in our 76 questions where we think she may go in the future. But right now, there's a very big summer of free agents coming up. And we probably didn't see this 2 months ago. Now we're rolling into a summer of free agents.
Yeah, this is very cool. It's cool to see even Ethan Page pop up on NXT. I know he's not exactly a free agent, but kind of seeing these talent swaps is going to be very exciting as all these contracts are coming up.
Very true. My next news story for you, Ashlee. In an interview with Flop Magazine, Naomi said slowly but surely women's wrestling have come to prove that they're able to draw just like the men and deserve the TV time and wages equal to the men. And I got to agree with Naomi. We have seen the evolution of women's professional wrestling over the last 15 to 20 years. We are living in a generation that grew up watching Trish Stratus versus Lita on Monday Night Raw, Trish Stratus versus Molly Holly. Now this generation of female talent are in their prime and are some of the best wrestlers on the programs. And I got to say, especially with NXT, the women's division is the main draw.
Yeah, I mean, they've been hitting it out of the park for a while now, and I feel like WWE's women's division, along with NXT, has been very good and very stacked for a while. But it's finally nice to see AEW sort of get on maybe some equal footing with the women's division. Finally, they have some big names. They've had a lot of really good storylines and a lot of talent. So it's very cool to see them kind of get more time, even in AEW, something that we've said they've struggled with. But like I said, WWE has always, and I would say especially in the past 10 years, done a very good job at showcasing the women.
Very true, because I grew up in a time when women's wrestling was kind of like a sideshow, because you hardly ever see two women wrestle in a match. I'm talking about the 1980s. I'm talking about when Mae Young and like for WCW would be like Medusa. They would be like champions for years on time because you never had anybody else to challenge them because you hardly ever saw them in a competitive match. They would be like towards the beginning of the show, maybe a match here once every 3 or 4 months, but now we have like Stardom, we have like other promotions that are totally female based, and they are some of the best promotions in the world.
Exactly. And exactly, I kind of grew up in the same time. Like I struggled to enjoy women's wrestling as a child and growing up. And it sort of took a turn as I got a little older, but like the progress is crazy.
Very true. I'm the uncle of two young ladies. One's going to be 20 by the end of this month. The one is 18. There's no way on this planet I was showing women's wrestling from the early 1990s to the early 2000s. Now, this wrestling right now, yes, I have no problem. I would love to sit and watch this sports-based presentation of all these great athletes. I feel like there's a lot of good role models for my nieces to see.
Yeah, no, I agree. Exactly like you said, it was very tough going, but it's glad to see them get competitive and then start to see them at least across most of the major promotions get the TV time and the promo time and everything like that to continue storylines and feuds and everything.
Very true. And the biggest story of all is the biggest female talent in WWE, Becky Lynch, is now a free agent. Later on, we're going to talk about where we think she's going to be. But 15 years ago, this wouldn't be the case. She wouldn't be the biggest free agent in all of professional wrestling.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Okay, so we're moving on to my next story for you. My next story, as it was first reported Friday by Fightful Select, Lou Diano is no longer with TNA Wrestling. He served as the vice president of marketing for the company. There's a lot of backstage talent leaving TNA Wrestling. I got to say, I feel like Anthem is in the process of downsizing this company to the level where they wanted it. This has been a story we've been talking about for the last 6 months after Scott D'Amore got let go by the company. There's a faction in Anthem that sees TNA as this programming for their channel, and they want to keep it at a certain level. And a lot of this talent is the talent that wanted to grow TNA Wrestling.
Yeah, we talked about this a lot at the beginning of the year when everything happened, and we're kind of seeing like all the fallout now of like D'Amore's been gone now, and all of his people are going along with him now, and that's through Anthem, like you said, downsizing, but mostly kind of like replacing people with who they have sort of hand chosen for these positions. They still have a great roster and they're still doing some good stuff, but I do have concerns with Anthem taking over in the backstage capacity.
Exactly, because as it's been reported by Fightful, also there's no dates for TNA tapings past August 2nd and 3rd, and that this happens to be the same weekend as SummerSlam. So Bound for Glory, their biggest pay-per-view of the year, is usually in October. And normally, actually, by this time, we would know the location at least.
Yeah, I think it's going to be rough, though, with this turnover and everything going on. Like I said before we came on, I hope that we'll have these dates and at least a location for Bound for Glory by the end of this month.
Very true. Now, if you saw NXT last week, you saw the Knockouts champion Jordan Grace appear on the show to challenge Roxanne Perez at Battleground coming up this weekend. Now, this arrangement was made like 3 weeks ago, and according to PW Insider, it was kept hush-hush with a lot of TNA and WWE talent not knowing that Grace was going to be the one to challenge Perez for this title.
That's very cool. I think, especially in today's age, it is very tough to keep these things under wraps.
I gotta say, that was a great surprise last week when I was watching NXT live and she came out and I went, oh my word, this match is going to freaking cook. These two ladies know how to freaking wrestle. They can put a good match together. And it instantly made me want to watch this weekend's NXT Battleground live, which will be Sunday night.
It's very cool to see WWE at least testing this to see, I guess, how it seems like Jordan Grace is sort of like the ambassador for TNA with WWE. So maybe they're kind of hinging on how this works out with like if they'll continue doing things like this in the future. And I hope they do. I think it's very cool. It's one of the biggest things I love about AEW is the partnerships and everything that they have with all the other different promotions. So it would be very cool to see WWE branch out and kind of join in on the rest of the wrestling world.
Very true. So that brings our Control Center for June the 3rd, 2024 to a wrap as we go over to the 76 questions. And Ashlee,
time to ring the bell as Shawn and Ashlee debate 6 stunning questions from the week of wrestling. All the whys. And what the hell was that?
let's just start with the biggest question I could think of this week. As we already talked about in the Control Center, Becky Lynch is a free agent. So my question to you, Ashlee, if she doesn't go back to the WWE, what would be a better fit for AEW or Impact Wrestling / TNA?
Excuse me. I genuinely don't know because it's weird to say I would see her leaving WWE. I just don't think it'll happen. I mean, possibly TNA. I mean, they do have this budding relationship with WWE, so something there where she could possibly even continue to work with WWE beyond just being there contracted. I could see her doing something like that. I would love to see her show up for like a match or two if she's going on a hiatus. That would be really cool. But I think she does have a lot going on at home. Her husband is home injured, and I imagine he's still recovering and dealing with everything. And they do have a young daughter, so that immediately is going to change how anybody feels about their work schedule and how much they're doing and everything like that. So if anything, I could see maybe TNA, but I don't see her leaving WWE at all.
Okay, I agree with you, Ashlee. I feel like she's on a hiatus. She's going to eventually come back to WWE. She's going to play the game where she'll accept offers from all 3 companies and she'll play them off to get the best deal for her, which eventually will be the WWE. But to answer my own question, I would say, like you, TNA / Impact Wrestling is a better option just for the simple fact that AEW has so many wrestlers contracted now. How do you give even Becky Lynch TV time? They just got Mercedes Moné. I'm like, they literally kicked off Mariah May versus Saraya because they didn't have time on Dynamite last week.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what happened with that. It was a very weird way to go about it, but you're right. They do struggle to get a lot of their contracted talents on TV. So I wouldn't not see them adding another one. But I mean, I genuinely thought there was no chance Mercedes Moné went to AEW, but she's in AEW. So it really truly is never say never. But I think, like you said, the money is going to be too good. I think she's going to get one of the best like travel deals, like schedules and things like that from WWE this go around. She's more than earned it.
Okay, here's a follow-up question for you. Do you think she signs the biggest contract in the history of women's professional wrestling when she gets back into professional wrestling, say 9 months to 24 months from now?
I genuinely think it could be a possibility. I don't know if there's any other like big time contracts coming up, but I could see even if Tony Khan will certainly put something together. I don't think he won't try at all. So it'll certainly be something to use. And if she can kind of play it like Mercedes did and get more money, hey, that's what this is for. Like that's why we need this, because they deserve to be paid what they deserve.
Very true. So my second standing question for you. We're coming off of a very great MJF promo at Double or Nothing. It was so great. I was thinking he was going to be on Dynamite the following Wednesday night. Surprised me that he wasn't on the show. And I'm going like, why don't you have your hot babyface back on your main show after he delivers one hell promo? And we had so much time we could cut. I mean, like we had a whole freaking learning tree. We could have trimmed that down to give MJF a segment. You know what? He could interrupt the learning tree and tell him how much shit that was like. And we could go on with our lives.
Listen, I just need to say one thing about that learning tree segment, because no one has been able to answer me. Where did Samoa Joe come from during that segment? Because his music started playing and he was just at the ring. He had not been there beforehand.
Apparently, he can open portals through time and space and disappear once his music hits. Like you, I didn't figure out where he went to, but he really stopped Hook from going down the dumb babyface road. Go like, dude, you realize there's 3 people in the ring. Oh, we'll work on this on our own time. and if this is the revitalization of Hook through his partnership with Samoa Joe, I might just change my tune about the learning tree, but I'm gonna have to see this a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. But with MJF, it's solely a string along thing. I'm sure, because you and I myself thought we would see some MJF this Wednesday, and we did not. But we got the announcement that he would be on next week, so certainly to bring people back for next week as well. I can't wait to see him come back. I'm very excited to see what he's going to do, especially after reading reports that Cole is still not cleared. I guess like having him come out was just to kind of write that off for the meantime. So kind of interested to see where he goes first this week.
Very true. We'll have to see how that plays out tomorrow night on AEW Dynamite. Let's move on to my third standing question for you. As it's been reported that Mark Henry and Arn Anderson are both leaving AEW. Their contracts were not renewed. My question to you, Ashlee, is Tony Khan making a mistake by allowing these two gentlemen to leave the company and not have access to their wrestling knowledge?
I don't know. I mean, AEW does have a lot of people in the back that are very knowledgeable, and I could see Arn Anderson being a big loss, especially for, a lot of the younger talents who I am certain go to him for like advice and things like that. But it's weird because Mark Henry was certainly brought in to be more of like a commentator, which he was at first. He was like a Rampage commentator, and he did the main event, little announcement, and that seemed to like stop very quickly. So I'm not sure if he didn't like doing it or if they didn't see him as a fit in that position. But it seems like AEW has been doing some downsizing in some certain areas. So I guess I understand why it happened.
Ashlee, the one thing I hate about this, we never get my idea to come to life. The fact that Powerhouse Hobbs was there and he had Mark Henry, and having Mark Henry as Powerhouse Hobbs manager, that would have been something I would have done personally. I know injuries and time just didn't work for that situation, and Mark Henry just made his debut on Sunday night at MLW Battle Riot. He was there as a guest, so we'll have to see where Mark Henry goes next. I get a feeling Arn Anderson might go WWE because Cody was talking about maybe being an old school manager, and we know how that played out in AEW. That was Arn Anderson.
Yeah, I would love to see him get out on like a Legends contract. He certainly deserves that.
Exactly. We'll keep you addressed over the coming weeks here on Radio Free Professional Wrestling about this situation. On to our next question. And Ashlee, imagine my surprise when I was watching NXT last week, and at the end of it, the lights go out, and it was Ethan Page, the one attacking all the male wrestlers in NXT, and he's in line to challenge Trick Williams for the NXT title. Why is the floor instilling for Ethan Page in NXT?
He could certainly be a top guy there. I'm not exactly sure why he didn't get the chance to be a top guy in AEW. They brought him in, and it felt like there was some high expectations in AEW when they brought him in, and then they kind of swiftly threw him in another tag team and kind of left him to go by the wayside. There wasn't much focus on him outside of like the Dan Lambert storyline. He could kill it in NXT. I could certainly I see why they're putting him up already against the champion. He's fantastic, and the fact that AEW didn't take advantage of it is something that I think they might regret.
I think they're going to regret it about, say, Sunday night about 10:30 after we see Trick Williams versus Ethan Page, and they're going to go like, dang, we could have had somebody else challenge for the AEW World Championship. Now, remember, 2 weeks ago, I was on the show with you and Kimmy, and I was complaining that there was nobody to challenge Trick Williams on the hillside for this title. Problem solved. Ethan Page is here, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, and I'm happy he turned it right around. Like he just left AEW and he's already found work because he's good, and that's exactly why. Like I don't know if this is part of the non-competes being done away with as part of that that law that went into effect a couple of weeks ago, but this is great that he got out of there. There was a lot of momentum around his name when he got released, and he's immediately into something with WWE.
Exactly, and I can't wait to see how this plays out tomorrow night on NXT. Let's move on to a question. It's a disappointment for one person, myself, as last week on Dynamite, I was so looking forward to Mariah May versus Saraya. I was going we're going to get a Saraya match on Dynamite TV. I was like, cool. I watched Dynamite. I get to 9:50ish, and I go didn't we miss a match somewhere? Did I fall asleep? No, I literally went back for the recording, and this match was not on there. And they announced they're going to have this match tomorrow night on Dynamite. So, Ashlee, we're going to play editors here. Could there have been like a segment or two we could cut on this last episode of Dynamite to get this freaking match in?
Absolutely. And I will say, I think it was a weird way to go because we got the graphic for Mirai May versus Saraya, which, like you said, didn't end up happening. But we did get Mercedes Moné versus Sky Blue, which wasn't announced at all and was just announced like during the course of the show. It's weird because I posted something about it as the show was going on, and somebody responded and thought that possibly the match wasn't supposed to happen this week because like something on the control center, like they didn't mention the match at all. They don't always mention every match on the control center though. So it was very disappointing to have the graphic for that and not get it. Also, there was a tweet from Saraya. I don't know if it was like kayfabe at all, but she didn't seem very happy. So I'm assuming the match got pulled. But I hope it wasn't for the learning tree segment. I'll say that.
See, that would have been my first choice. We could have trimmed like in minutes off of the learning tree there. And oh, hey, I do love Mercedes Moné versus Sky Blue for that match and for the TBS title. We just literally blew through like 3 weeks of programming that you could have done with the storyline because in one, you had a celebration of Mercedes Moné with the title. Sky Blue comes down. She explains she's the one that actually attacked Mercedes Moné because we didn't know who attacked her like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And we get that. We found out. We get the match made by Tony, and we had the match inside of 45 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought too. It was very strange because we hadn't even kind of brought that up in like maybe the past few weeks or so. And then Sky Blue was just like, hey, it was me. And then they had a match. Like I assumed that maybe they would have set it up for like maybe this week or maybe Collision or something. Kind of, I would say outside of this match, though, I think a pretty less than stellar week for the women of AEW.
Well, honestly, after a good Double or Nothing pay-per-view, I thought the follow-up Dynamite was average. I thought it was below average. I thought like, this is what you're going to give us following a hot pay-per-view. Don't you guys want to have some momentum?
And like it suffered from like one of those things that like, yes, Mercedes Moné versus Sky Blue was a good match, but this was not a match that anybody anticipated. And like, it's very weird to me that we've spoken a lot about like Tony Khan's idea of like booking things like throughout the show and how that affects like his viewership, his ticket sales and everything like that. Like if people know who's going to be, if you know you're getting Mercedes Moné versus Sky Blue on Dynamite, more people are going to be interested in buying a ticket. We didn't know we were getting that match until 8:30, like on the show. Announce these things.
Exactly. So there might be a solution here. We'll go to my next question for you because would you prefer Dynamite to be 3 hours? And how many hours do you think AEW could offer the Summertime Warner and program for their channel? Because Tony Khan, through a couple of different interviews, has says he's open to the idea of us planning his programming offering to the Summertime Warner.
I don't know if I'd want a 3-hour Dynamite. Excuse me. I think a lot of people, and even myself included, sometimes struggle with a 3-hour Raw. If we had 2 3-hour shows a week, it might be a little bit of a tough go. I think 5 hours is fine. I just think that having to move Rampage all the time is always going to hurt it. I wish they could find a more solid ground for Rampage to be on and not Fridays at 10 p.m. because that is a horrible time and a horrible time slot. Like if they could move that to even like Tuesday at 7 or something like right before NXT, I don't even think that would be that bad. Even if you if some people watch both and you could still have the rest of the week to catch up with like your DVR or anything like that. I don't want a 3-hour Dynamite, but I would say 5 hours is probably all they can do right now.
Well, I get a feeling you're right. 5 hours is enough for AEW right now in the moment. I don't think they can handle another hour or two added to their plate. On top of the fact they want to do 5-hour pay-per-views, maybe you can talk me into moving Rampage over to Collision. You combine Rampage and Collision to a 3-hour block on Saturday night. And if it's like formatted like Collision, where Collision is clearly your professional wrestling show where you get a lot of professional wrestling matches, then yeah, you can sign me up for a 3-hour block at AWTV. But it has to be Saturday night. And it has to be Collision style.
Yeah, if they did Collision over 3 hours, they would definitely have to do a little better than this week because it was weird to only have one women's match on that show, and that was like a squash match.
Exactly, and it's weird for us not to have a Collision women's match inside our top 5 matches of the week. Spoiler alert there, but Very true.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, that has been your 76 questions here on Ray Breed for Professional Wrestling for this week. And yes, we are moving over to mine and Ashley's favorite segment of the week. It is our top 5 matches.
It's Shawn and Ashley's top 5 matches of the week. As they count down their 5 favourite matches from the past week, did your favourite match make the cut?
And I got to say, once Ashley sent her matches in, I kind of feel like we are joined mentally here by a psychic link because we tend to have a very similar match setup here. So, Ashley, I want to let you go first.
Okay. So we just spoke about it quite a little bit there, but for number 5, I went with the Mercedes Moné versus Sky Blue. I did ding it a little bit just because like it was one of those things where like I would have liked to see this play out a little more. I would have loved to see Sky Blue have a little more interaction post attack on Mercedes, which we didn't really get. Mercedes Moné continues to look fantastic. We spoke a few weeks ago when Kimmy was on about we hadn't seen her in action in so long. We were wondering where she was in terms of her athletic ability in the ring post injury, but she looks phenomenal.
Oh, yes, she does. And, you know, we've been wanting to see some more heels develop here. So we have somebody to challenge Mercedes Moné because she just defeated Willow Nightingale. So we know we're not going to go back to that challenger for Mercedes Moné just yet. So they had a perfect challenger sitting here with Sky Blue because Julia Hart's out with an injury. We can't get Mercedes Moné versus Julia Hart yet, but we can have a stand-in in Sky Blue. Now, I will come on to this match later on because it is in my list of top 5 matches. But allow me to go to my number 5 match of the week because it's on Collision. And I put this on here because the Workhorsemen are back in action as the gentleman has recovered from his injury. And we have the Workhorsemen versus Daniel Garcia and Shibata. And Daniel Garcia and Shibata is my new favorite tag team. And they need to have a tag team title shot sometime down in the summer.
Yes, I would love to see that. They need to be in this AEW tag title picture. And it's beyond fantastic to see Anthony Henry back because it was so great to see that crowd go nuts for like JD Drake's moonsault. This is what you need to do. Like this exposure for them is going to be good because they are a fantastic tag team.
Well, you know what I would do in a few weeks here, or like maybe not this Collision, maybe the following Dynamite, have the Workhorsemen versus the Young Bucks on Dynamite and just let that crowd enjoy a babyface team. And the Workhorsemen, because of Anthony Henry's history of his injury and everybody just being happy he's back, and the Young Bucks beat him in like 10, 15 minutes, and that crowd will boo the Young Bucks out of the building.
For sure. And all you got to do is give them a little bit like they did here, like that little bit of offense and stuff like that to showcase what they can do. They would take off.
Exactly. So, Ashley, we're moving up to your number 4 match of the week.
All right. So number 4, I went with, I was watching the best of the Super Juniors this week, trying to catch up on all of this. Doki versus Robbie Eagles is fantastic. It's the match that led Doki to the semifinals or his match today that I still haven't gotten to see yet. But man, he has garnered so much like fan support over the past couple of months, and it is so easy to see why. He looks fantastic in the ring. He has this big match with Robbie Eagles, an opponent who up to this point he had never beaten before. So there's like a lot of like history and story between them. And Robbie Eagles, I think, is kind of underrated. He looked phenomenal.
Exactly. I need to go watch some of the Super Junior tournament. It's been on my list of things to do, but there's so much professional wrestling. It's hard to pick and choose, and that's why I have you on as a tag team partner so we can split some stuff up. You normally watch some more New Japan Pro Wrestling than I do. I watch a little bit more British wrestling, some Progress Wrestling, so we can just blend it all together. But my number 4 match of the week, it was in Collision. It's Roderick Strong versus Leo Rush. And I got to say, this match started out with Roderick Strong throwing Leo Rush around like a rag doll. Eventually, you have the babyface make a small comeback, but that end of Heartache at the end looked brutal. And Roderick Strong is heading towards a world title shot tomorrow night on Dynamite versus Swerve Strickland.
Yeah, also on my list as well. Very good. It's very easy, I think, to forget how good Leo Rush is in the ring. You know, like we've seen him in WWE, we've seen him in AEW previously, we've seen him in New Japan, but he does have like these like tendencies of like taking time off and doing other things outside of wrestling. So sometimes he's not around for a while, but like I haven't seen him in a minute, and him coming back in and just reminding me of how good he truly is was so good to see. He looks great. He's he's so fast.
Okay, in this match, he does a cutter, like a springboard cutter, but it's from the bottom rope, not the middle rope, because normally you would see the different, like a middle rope for the cutter. He launches off of the bottom rope, gets enough air to nail the cutter. I gotta say, this gentleman is firing on all cylinders, and you need to watch the Casino Battle Royal that's coming up. We're going to talk about that. And you need to see Roderick Strong versus Leo Rush this week, because put them together, it was a great week for Leo Rush.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, my number 3 match of the week, we already talked about this a little bit. I had it rated a little bit higher up because I was looking at it through a vacuum of this being in the match in the ring, and I thought it was a good showing for Sky Blue. Even though she came up oh so short, she goes for the Sky Blue, but gets countered into Mercedes Monet's new finisher, the Moneymaker, I do believe what she's calling it, and the champion wins her first title defense on TBS TV. I kind of wish it wasn't Sky Blue, but the match was great.
Yeah, like I said, I do feel like it was weird to kind of rush right into the match, like right after the reveal that it was Sky Blue who attacked her. But I don't know if they have something planned for the next few weeks. I'm hoping we can run it back because Sky Blue we saw a lot of her, and I feel like we haven't seen her in a little bit. So it was nice to see her kind of come out and get a nice showcase.
Exactly. I feel like this match proves that you can move her up to being like a contender for the AEW Women's World title or the TBS title. Because you, outside of Julia Hart, and she's injured, who's the heel besides Chris Statlander? You need somebody else.
Yeah, I feel like we're missing some of the bigger heels in the women's division. We have a lot of baby faces who are doing some good stuff, but I think we do need to build up some of a bigger heel division for the women.
And it's crazy to think about, like 6 months ago, we were talking about Sky Blue being this young, perky baby face, and we thought she was a great baby face. Now we're just championing her as a heel, and it's crazy. This lady is just freaking talented.
Yeah, it's great to see how far she's come, because we often talked about kind of like her promos and stuff like that as like the baby face being like very soft spoken, and you almost couldn't hear her when she did it. But this having a character and something to kind of like get her teeth into is certainly seemed to open her up as far as like her range and like her promos and her like in ring like connectivity with the crowd and stuff like that.
Exactly. When Julia Hart gets better and back in AEW, they just need to break them away from the House of Black, form the House of Julia, and let them be the 2 main players.
Yeah, for sure. Just have Big Bad Brody be their muscle man.
Exactly. So let's move on to your number 2 match of the week. And I got a feeling that it's going to appear on my list too. So Ashlee, you lead off.
Yeah, okay. Well, again, another week, another Will Ospreay match. Will Ospreay taking on Kyle O'Reilly. Kyle O'Reilly having one of the best runs since returning from injury. He's been great in every single match we've seen him in. He's been doing some fantastic work, and I'm hoping Will Ospreay's okay. He looked a little banged up after the match, but just unbelievable offense. I can't. He's insane.
You know, this match was so insane that me and you both have it at the number 2 spot in the week on our list because it's my number 2 match. And I got to say, I had the same trepidations as you did because after that match, I saw Will holding his forearm, and going like, did he do something during the match? Are we in trouble for Forbidden Door? Are we not going to get Swerve Strickland versus Will Ospreay? So fingers crossed here, we'll know more tomorrow night on Dynamite. But so far over the weekend, I haven't seen any update on his health status. But this match was so freaking good. How could it not be? It's Kyle O'Reilly versus Will Ospreay, 2 guys who are master tacticians. And the only thing I would say was I would save Kyle O'Reilly from Will Ospreay for this title match. Maybe you had like the Kingdom come down, interfere, and you throw him into a feud with Kyle O'Reilly. That way, O'Reilly didn't have to take a clean loss. But I'm just scratching at hairs now. But this match was good.
Yeah, like you said, hoping Will Ospreay's good, but just fantastic match, and you should go check it out.
Exactly. And I gotta say, we duplicated the number 1 spot with the Casino Gauntlet. And I got to say, Ashlee, the change over from the Battle Royal to the Gauntlet was the best thing AEW has ever done for this match type. Because remember how much we would complain about the suits coming out in like groups? This Gauntlet style Battle Royal is so much better because you don't know when it's going to end. You don't know exactly how many people you got coming down to be in this match. and every one of these gentlemen in this match was somebody who could have won that match.
Yeah. This match was, I, for some reason, had thought it was going to be a battle royal before I realized it was the gauntlet match. But I love it. You don't know who's coming next. It has kind of like that mystery, like of battle royal of like who's coming out next. But the action is so fast paced, and with guys like Leo Rush, with guys like Will Ospreay, and there with guys like Claudio, it was insane. It was like you said, like anybody that could have came out could have won that. I have mixed feelings about Will Ospreay winning it, which is weird because he's phenomenal and he deserves obviously a title shot. I think I was hoping for a more Forbidden Door match for Forbidden Door, but we're getting Will Ospreay versus Swerve Strickland probably a couple of times in the coming months, so I'm not going to be upset about it.
Well, I'll go ahead and say this is my number one match of the week as well. And I can concede your point here about Will Ospreay winning this because we were all thinking that, hey, we're saving this match for All in London. We're like 2 months away from this match really to happen. How do we go to Forbidden Door? Do we give Will Ospreay his first loss at Forbidden Door? Or are we going to do something that AEW normally doesn't do with their world title matches? Have some clunky, funky inning where somebody comes out to cost Will Ospreay the match so we can kick this thing down the road.
I could see it like being like maybe like Don Callis. We've kind of seen like Will Ospreay not listening to Callis over the past couple of weeks, so that could be like maybe the final straw for Callis. But like, even after thinking about it, like I guess I assume that Jon Moxley will be defending at Forbidden Door as well, and hopefully he will be defending against a New Japan talent who deserves a shot. But I don't see Moxley losing the title, so I could see New Japan not wanting multiple people losing big title matches at this pay-per-view. So I could see maybe that's why they went with Will Ospreay versus Swerve Strickland here as well. It's going to be phenomenal. I truly hope we can kind of pry Will away from Don after this, because the baby face is clearly Will Ospreay. So pairing him with Don Callis isn't making much sense for much longer.
No, I feel like his inclusion into the Don Callis family has run its course, and we need to see something happen with that, where that is him just living on his own terms that they don't do anything, or they actually turn on Will and we have a feud with Will and the group. So, Ashley, that was our top 5 matches of the week. I do have one special little segment we're going to debut this week. I call it On Tap.
What's on tap? Ashlee and Shawn give you their choices for what you can't miss this coming week in pro wrestling action.
And my first thing I want to point out is tonight, Tuesday night, you get Jordan Grace versus Stevie Turner on NXT TV. This is the match to get the NXT fans used to Jordan Grace before she heads over to NXT Battleground to face off against Roxanne Perez. Stevie Turner is a longtime member of NXT UK. She hasn't been on NXT lately. This should be a fine match, and this should be a easily victory for Jordan Grace as we get ready for the NXT World Women's title shot come out Sunday.
Definitely a showcase for her, and people who may have missed her in the Royal Rumble or missed her appearances prior will definitely get a chance to see what Jordan Grace is capable of, which is scary.
Oh, if we haven't seen Jordan Grace wrestle yet, you're in for a treat. You don't want to miss this match tonight, okay? Let me tell you. Tomorrow night on AEW TV, hopefully, fingers crossed, we get Saraya versus Mariah May, because I would be very, very angry next week on this program if this match gets kicked down the road yet again.
Yes. All the Mariah May matches, please. Every week, Mariah May matches, please. For me and Nigel McGuinness.
I mean, like, Mariah May has become one of the best talents they have in the women's division. And when she came in, I wasn't sure what she would be because I don't watch that much Stardom. And if you didn't watch Stardom, you just see, oh, she's a pretty British blonde. She's good looking as all get out. But once she gets in the ring, she's a freaking great talent. And that's what I've seen over the last few months and what's made me a bigger Mariah May fan. And any Saraya match I get is extra because we don't know how long she's going to be able to wrestle. She's coming back from that major neck surgery she had a few years ago. So anytime she steps into the square circle, it's just an extra gift.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, Mariah May quickly just moving up the ranks of my favorite women's wrestlers at the moment. And I feel like we haven't seen Saraya in a match in a while. So I'm sure she's pretty antsy to get back in there as well.
Exactly. Also tomorrow night on AEW TV, we have the return of MJF. And I got to say, I hope they start to show off with MJF. They just give him a mic and let him go into MJF mode, and he has like a 50-minute monologue. It'd be well worth it because that one at AEW Double or Nothing was great.
Yeah, truly. I feel like we haven't been blessed with an MJF Dynamite promo in a while, so give him some time and let him do his MJF thing.
Okay, and the last thing I want to highlight tomorrow night on AEW Dynamite for the AEW World Title, it's Swerve Strickland versus Roderick Strong. This will be an entertaining match, but I gotta say, I feel like the champ is going to retain here. Sorry, Roddy.
For sure. I don't see Swerve losing, but Roderick Strong has been on a hell of a run and had a great run, I think, as international champion. He put on some bangers, I think. So getting to see him versus Swerve while Swerve has been on this run lately is fantastic. And I definitely like Swerve defending pretty regularly.
Exactly, I do too. And granted, a few weeks ago when Kim was here, was saying, I'm not really feeling this Swerve title run. But I gotta say, I was kind of wrong about it. I feel like having a babyface champion who's willing to defend his title week after week after week against different opponents is slowly but surely building the title run for Swerve Strickland. And I got a feeling maybe they don't take the title off of him until maybe all in London. But there, I feel like maybe he gives Strickland the win, even though it would be against somebody, maybe Will Ospreay, and that'd be a babyface winning over a beloved babyface in his home country.
I'm very excited to see the Owen brackets this year. That's for sure.
Yes, I feel like the Owen tournament is going to be amazing, and especially now there's going to be stakes to it. Besides, you get this nice, pretty little belt that we never see again.
Yeah, I do like that. Like you said, like getting the belt and having the trophy, a very nice touch. It's a very nice accolade to add to your resume, but having something very tangible, I think immediately elevates like the meaning of this already, it's supposed to be this memorial tournament for Owen Hart. So sometimes you'd want it to be a little more. And I think the past few years, like we've had some good people in it, like Willow Nightingale and Ricky Starks and stuff like that. But I feel like they've been pretty predictable. And like I said last week, I'd like to see more of like a C2 type bracket, like something that like anybody, like I'd like to see Jay White in it. I'd like to see, I want to see big names in this.
Exactly. They just need to copy and paste their ideas for the Continental title tournament and just insert it for any other tournament they run in the future, because that was well run. It told a lot of great stories, and that's how you want to do a tournament-based format here in North America.
Yeah, especially for something as important as the Owen Hart Memorial. I think it deserves to be a little bit more than it's been over the past few years. So to see them finally add like some very important stakes to it is nice.
Exactly. Ashlee, where can we find you on the Super Information Superhighway?
I am on Twitter usually, and it's at groovy_ash_.
Okay, so one bit of admin here for you. Coming up Sunday, David Brightly, our other co-host, is starting his brand new wrestling radio show on More Music Radio. It's going to be like 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern here in the United States. Go over to moremusicradio.com. I'll have the link in the show notes. His very first show, he has one of the owners of Progress Wrestling live in the studio, and he's doing an interview there. And you just may hear a fellow American on this show. I may have a segment coming up on that show coming Sunday, so just check that out. You can always follow me on Twitter at RPWShawn. You can follow the show at www.radiofreepw.com to catch up on the back episodes. And until we see you next week, we are top podcasters doing top podcasting things, and we are out.
Christina here. On behalf of the guys, thanks for listening. Like the show? Do us a favor and share it with a friend. Have a stunning question? Email it to the show at radiofreeprowrestling@gmail.com. Until next time, this has been Radio Free Pro Wrestling. Stay stunningly.